Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome to this episode of the Live Train Perform podcast. I'm your host, Shaun Kober. During today's short episode, I'm going to be answering a question from one of my followers/listeners. I went away for the weekend and did a little mini staycation in the north of Phuket. I turned my phone off, did somewhat of a tech fast as well as a food fast, digital detox. I journaled, I napped, I walked along the beach, I chilled, read, etc. So I asked a question on my Instagram, which I'm going to answer in today's episode because it is definitely relevant for a lot of people around the world, particularly people in Australia at the moment who are going through the lockdown processes again. So I've just got back to work over the last couple of days. Last Thursday, the gym reopened, so I could go back to work, but I hadn't been able to work at the gym for 3 months prior to that. The question that I'm going to be answering comes from Maddie Mack, and his question is, what are the things that you did to protect your mental health during lockdown, deal with loss of tribe and social connection? Great question, mate. This kind of ties in with what I did over the weekend, where I went away, I switched off, I removed distractions, and I started journaling and basically gave myself some clarity on where I was at, what I was grateful for, as well as projected what I wanted to work towards for the remainder of this year, along with some action steps that I could take to implement those things. So going back to the first lockdown last year in March, I actually, once the gym closed, I wrote down all of my values, everything that was important to me. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I've got that piece of paper right in front of me. If you're listening to this on the podcast, then I will attach the the social media post that I did last year that lays everything out. So basically, I looked at what was important to me. I wrote down my list of values as my 3 main headings. And then I put in some subheadings around those 3 main headings. All right, so my main headings were health and immune system, growth and development, and then relationships and finances. Okay, under the main heading, which was my number 1 priority, was health and immune system, was my subheadings of sleep, hydration, hormones, gut health, nutrition, movement, meditation, and sunlight. So that meant that when I was looking at my calendar and my schedule on a day-to-day basis, I was making sure that I was doing a number of those things under those subheadings every single morning to kick off my day, because that was my number 1 priority. Okay. Then my growth and development was my second priority. I just started my podcast, so those subheadings were podcast content creation, purpose, schedule, Thai lessons, courses, write articles, listen to podcasts, and read books. So when I look at those subheadings, I was also looking at my calendar and slotting in times where I was going to work on those things. My third main heading was relationships and finances, and the subheadings were spend only what you need, mates, minimalism, 3 calls per week minimum, family, and online coaching. So again, look at my calendar, look at my schedule. Where can I slot these things in? Where can I organize basically my life and all of these things that I want to achieve and prioritize? Where can I put them into my schedule? Okay, and then I basically just organized my schedule on a day-to-day basis to ensure that I was doing all of those things. And some mornings when, I was feeling a little bit flat, I was feeling a little bit tired, then instead of, maybe doing a hard, heavy training session, I might have just got some sunlight, did a little bit of a stretch, made sure I drank heaps of water, etc. Okay, eat good food to make sure I maintain gut health and immune system. All right, but then what I would do is, instead of doing podcast content creation, which obviously takes a lot of research, a lot of energy, etc., then maybe I'll jump on my phone and call some friends or family or people that I want to connect with, my tribe, and build that social connection. Okay, then there was other days where I was feeling good, I was in a little bit of a flow state, I was feeling quite creative. So then that whole day I might have been, going through podcast content creation. I think one day I recorded like 3 podcasts, and then edited it all down, got it all uploaded, wrote the bio, the description, etc., etc. So, I think writing down what you value is extremely important, because then you can look at prioritizing where you're going to slot those things into your day. Okay, so that was last year's lockdown. We went into lockdown for a couple of months, and then the gym reopened again, and then it kind of went back to business as usual. But what I did towards the end of the year was, again, I did some journaling. Okay, and what I did was reflected on 2020. I know a lot of people had a really bad year in 2020. And again, I've posted about this before, basically saying, if you had a bad year in 2020, what makes you think that 2021 is going to be different? Okay, so I'll again attach that to the show notes for this podcast episode. But at the end of 2020, I went through my reflections, and I did a podcast on this as well, which I'll also attach. But basically, my 2020 reflections, I wrote down what am I grateful for this year. And the number one things that I was grateful for was my friends and family, because luckily for me, prior to the COVID lockdowns, I'd actually spent 6 weeks on holidays and doing courses, where I got to spend a lot of time with friends and family. And I literally got back to Thailand like 10 days before we went into lockdown. And then I used that time during lockdown to start creating my podcast. So what am I grateful for? Number one, friends and family. I went to Japan for 2 weeks, went snowboarding with a couple of mates. I went to Bali, went scuba diving, trained with some friends, met some new people, caught up with old friends. And then I went back to Australia and did my yoga course, and caught up with a number of veteran mates and brothers, as well as met a number of other people in the veteran space as well, and kind of created a really good quality network. The second thing that I was grateful for was personal growth. I started a podcast, and right now I'm currently at about 120 episodes. I became a yoga teacher. I read 24 books. I listened to a heap of other podcast creators and learnt from them as well, and also completed 3 courses in 2020. Number 3 was career. So what I was grateful for was that I played a part in Peter Yan's coaching team, and last year he won the UFC Bantamweight Championship, the title, against Jose Aldo, who's a legend of the sport. And I just remember sitting at the bar having some beers with some friends, and when he got his hand raised, I got up and just put my arms in the air and was just extremely grateful for being able to play a part in his journey. And I sat back down and pulled my sunglasses down and looked at one of my mates, and I had tears coming out of my eyes. So the next thing was I started a periodized program for fighters, which was part of the vision that I'd actually written at the start of last year. It was 2019 actually. I wrote that down that I wanted to start that. The next thing I did was help numerous people through online coaching, which I'm still doing to this day. The next thing that I was grateful for was my health and fitness. I was in a good place. My training was going well. I played in a couple of rugby tournaments, and I ended up winning most valuable player in the Southern Province region rugby tournament. We won that tournament and then went to Bangkok and played in the national championship there, where unfortunately I injured my hamstring. I tore it and was out for the rest of the tournament, but that's something that I'll talk about next. Then the next thing I was grateful for was the travel. Obviously, I got that travel to go back home, go to Japan, go to Bali, catch up with friends, family, etc. But what I also did was I knew that I couldn't travel overseas, so I ended up buying myself a car. Now, I didn't think that I'd ever need a car. In Thailand, everything's pretty close. I've got a scooter, I've got a motorbike, but I decided to buy a car because I knew I couldn't travel overseas, and I was like, well, now's a good time to get a car, drive around Thailand, spend this time to, explore and go off the beaten path. And, I covered 5,500 kilometers around Thailand and went to some amazing places and, got to see some of these places that are typically full of tourists. Didn't have anyone there. There was, I think, 4 or 5 days where I could count on one hand how many foreigners I saw, which was really awesome. For me, obviously terrible to see for the tourism industry, but it was great for me to be able to experience that. Now, over this last weekend, what I did with my journaling was I looked at 2021 so far, and I went through some fixes, some improves, and some sustains. Once I did that, then I did some projections. I wrote down my visions for what I want to achieve for the remainder of this year, along with action steps, which is something I'm going to share with you guys now, which ties into the original question. Okay, so my number one fix was my injuries. Since I tore my hamstring in that tournament, that rugby tournament, I've had a number of injuries since then. I dislocated my shoulder a couple of times. I've tweaked my back a couple of times. I'm sure I've had a number of other things come up, but I can't remember right now. But yeah, I pretty much had a pretty terrible run with injuries. So my fix for the first part of this year is to or moving forward is to make sure that I prioritize mobility, corrective exercise, dysfunctional movement patterns, etc. Start addressing that stuff. Make sure that I give my body the love, the care, the maintenance that it requires for me to be able to train the way that I want to, live the way that I want to, etc. Okay, so I've written out my training schedule. I've written out what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it, when I'm putting that into my day, etc. So that's basically my fix, the thing that I need to work on. Okay, the next thing I wrote down was improve. My improve for this year, on reflection of this year so far, is my social connection. I'm quite disciplined. I'm quite structured when it comes to ticking off things that I want to achieve in regards to podcast content creation, YouTube channel, Thai lessons, study, PTs, online coaching, my own training, etc., etc. So, I'm juggling a lot of things, but in saying that, my social connection is lacking a little bit. So I wrote that down as an improve. So my action steps for building that social connection is to make sure I call 3 people per week, friends and family. Okay, so on my whiteboards in front of me, one of my personal priorities was 3 calls to friends and family. I've written down 6 names to call this week. Okay, I already called 1 last night, so I've got another 5 or 6 days to call at least 2 more people. The next thing is social meetups. I've booked in with a couple of friends to go and have dinner with them tonight because I haven't caught up with them for a while. I'm going to make sure that I do that twice this week. Obviously if you're in lockup, then you're probably not going to be able to do that. So, making sure that you make time for calls, organize with people, align with their schedule, align with your schedule, jump on the phone, do some FaceTime, WhatsApp, whatever. Even better if you can get a group of people on board, a bunch of mates that you can get on a phone call with and, just catch up, talk shit, etc. To tie into that, I typically go back to Australia every Anzac Day because Anzac Day is an extremely important day for me. To go home and catch up with my friends and reminisce on our time in the military, tell stories, talk shit, throw some beers back, have a good time, just be around each other, etc. Now, obviously, this year I didn't get to do that. Last year I didn't get to do that. But what we did was organize big group Zoom calls. So, last year I literally sat at home and, cracked a bottle of Johnny Walker and just sat here and sipped a few drinks, jumped on a heap of different Zoom calls. I think I jumped on maybe 5 or 6 different Zoom calls and just caught up with friends that I hadn't seen for, some of them 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. So that was really cool to, obviously it's not the same as being there in person with someone, but you still do get that connection and you still do create that tribe mentality. So I think that's a big one for people dealing with the social connection, loss of tribe, is just, making time to organize with a bunch of friends to be able to get on a call and, look each other in the face on a video call is typically better than just a voice call. The next thing I want to improve is my time management. Again, I'm juggling a lot of different things. So I've actually written down the things that I'm going to prioritize on a day-to-day basis, tying in with everything that I'm doing, but each day is kind of going to have a theme. So what I've written down is to batch my tasks. So that means, I might record a podcast, then I might edit a previous podcast, then I might upload that to my hosting platform. Then I might, record the YouTube video, put that up, etc., etc. So I'm batching tasks that are very similar together to make sure that I'm not taking my attention and, spreading it too thin. So that's the first thing, batch tasks. The next thing was focus days. So for Monday, I've written down podcast content creation or edits. Tuesday is podcast interview or creation. Okay, Wednesday is my study-based day. Thursday is my social media, YouTube content day. Friday is kind of like my admin day, catch-up day. Just kind of picking up whatever I haven't really finished that week that needs to be done prior to the weekend. Then Saturday is my explore, rest, play day. And then Sunday is my reflect, project, and prepare day, so that I can, look back on the week that was. I can look forward to the week that is coming, and then I can prepare for that week as best I can. And then the next thing is my sustain, which is my lifestyle balance. I've got a really good lifestyle balance. Again, I organize everything. I'm quite disciplined. I'm quite structured. That means that I can be proactive and on the front foot, which allows me to be flexible when I need to be, because I'm all over the things that I need to do, I need to get done. I've ticked those things off the list. I'm ahead of where I need to be. So if something comes up, I feel tired, I don't feel like doing something, I want to, go and catch up with friends, go to the beach, whatever, I get sick or whatever it might be, I'm still ahead of where I need to be. So my lifestyle balance is good. And I've written down for sustain, organization, vision, reflect, project, prepare, execute, review, adjust, and refine. So I'm constantly looking at what's going on in my life. I'm creating gratitude. I'm looking for things that, I appreciate and I'm grateful for. And then I'm also looking at my vision, which then allows me to create clarity, which then allows me to put in action steps, things that I want to achieve moving forward, whether that's on a day-to-day basis, weekly basis, or a monthly basis. So hopefully that answers your question, Maddie. Anyone that's going through lockdown, I highly recommend giving yourself some purpose on a day-to-day basis, because if you don't have purpose, you're kind of just going to you're going to float through your days and you're not really going to achieve anything. And when you're not achieving anything, you feel like shit, you lose motivation, you lose drive, you don't want to get out of bed, you fucking eat comfort food, and you just generally feel like shit. So what I'd recommend for people going through those lockdowns is just, setting your schedule up and doing things that bring you fulfillment, and not only bring you fulfillment, but allow you to achieve things every day. Because in my mind, achievement it's the essence of life. Like, if you can achieve things every day that bring you fulfillment and contentment, then you win the day. And if you can do that on a weekly basis, you win the week. You do that on a monthly basis, you win the month. You do that on a yearly basis, you win the year. And not every day has to be perfect, okay? We're not working towards perfection, we're working towards progress. As long as we win more days than we lose within a week, we've won the week. We do that over a month, we do that over a year, etc., etc. So hopefully that helps you guys. Any 5-star ratings and reviews are much appreciated. Much love, guys. Peace.